Imagine a world vastly different from the one we know today. No towering skyscrapers, no sound of roaring engines, and certainly no advanced technology. Instead, endless stretches of fern forests and towering araucaria trees create a vast canopy, stretching as far as the eye can see. The warm breeze carries the damp scent of fertile earth. The sky is alive with the sounds of prehistoric creatures that dominate the land. Giant flying reptiles soaring above, and ferocious predators prowling below in search of prey. In the middle of an open plain, adjacent to a dense forest, a clutch of massive eggs lies hidden among the undergrowth. Each egg is about 30 to 40 centimeters long, its shell thick yet fragile. Inside one of these eggs, life stirs. A crack forms, a tiny fracture spreads along the surface, and from within, a baby Argentinosaurus, one of the largest creatures ever to walk the earth, begins to see the world for the very first time. With feeble legs and a body still unfamiliar with the pull of gravity, the hatchling struggles out of its shell, its eyes squinting against the harsh sunlight. Around it, dozens of its siblings are doing the same. They have been born into a world filled with danger, where only the strongest will survive. Despite their destined size, for now, they are nothing more than defenseless prey. The newborn Argentinosaurus has no time to adjust to its surroundings. In the distance, something moves through the tall grass. A shadow, watching, waiting. It is a Noasaurus, a small but agile predator, its sharp teeth gleaming as it stalks its prey with relentless focus. The baby dinosaurs, still weak and unaware of danger, do not notice the approaching threat. But not all creatures around them are oblivious. A fully grown Argentinosaurus, perhaps the mother of some of these hatchlings, feels a faint tremor in the ground. She lifts her massive head, her keen eyes locking onto the predator in the grass. With deliberate, heavy steps, the giant moves forward. The ground trembles beneath her immense weight. The Noasaurus, once confident in its approach, suddenly hesitates. It is no bigger than a single foot of the colossal herbivore that now looms over it. The giant does not need to attack. A single step closer is enough. The Noasaurus retreats, vanishing into the undergrowth. The hatchlings are safe, for now. But this is only the beginning. This world will not always have a guardian watching over them. Within weeks, the young Argentinosaurus begin to grow at an astonishing rate. They are no longer the frail, helpless creatures they once were. Their skin thickens, their legs grow stronger, and their instincts sharpen. Yet, a new challenge arises: food. As herbivores, they must find leaves, ferns, and low-lying vegetation to survive. But in a world dominated by massive plant eaters, they must compete with other species such as Iguanodon and Saltosaurus for resources. The young Argentinosaurus begin to learn that they cannot stay in one place for too long. Vegetation in a single area depletes quickly, forcing them to move constantly. This is the beginning of their migratory nature, a long and perilous journey across vast continents in search of greener lands. But this journey is fraught with danger. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, a herd of young and adult Argentinosaurus moves slowly across the open plains. The air is calm. The only sounds are the rhythmic footsteps of the massive creatures and the rustling of leaves in the wind. But from the shadows of the rocky cliffs, a pair of glowing red eyes watches. A predator lurks, crouching low, patiently observing the slow-moving giants. It is a Mapusaurus, one of the largest carnivores to have ever lived. Nearly 12 meters long, this beast is a relentless hunter, a a predator that does not hunt alone. The Argentinosaurus do not yet realize it. But tonight, they will face a threat far greater than a lone Noasaurus. And so begins their struggle for survival. As the morning sun kissed the horizon, a massive shadow moved slowly across the dusty earth. Their footsteps shook the ground, a heavy rhythm that signified their dominance over the vast land. The Argentinosaurus was no longer a hatchling. It had grown into a colossal being, its body stretching up to 35 meters long, weighing nearly 100 tons. They were the undisputed rulers of the land in their time. Yet, despite their immense size, they were not invincible. To survive in this era meant constant movement. Migration was the key to their existence. They could not stay in one place for too long, for their massive bodies required an enormous amount of food. Each day, an adult Argentinosaurus could consume over a ton of vegetation, the equivalent of thousands of ferns and Araucaria tree leaves. With their towering necks, they could reach the highest branches, untouched by smaller herbivores. But this also meant that their competition was not with smaller plant-eaters, but with fellow giants, Puertosaurus and Andosaurus, two other massive sauropods that roamed South America during the late Cretaceous. However, their greatest threat was not starvation, but the predators lurking in the darkness. As night fell, the sky filled with brilliant stars. But in the distance, something far more dangerous than darkness itself was stirring. Mapusaurus, the apex predator of this ecosystem, moved silently between the rocks and shrubs. Unlike most solitary predators, Mapusaurus hunted in packs. They did not rely on their size to bring down an Argentinosaurus. Instead, they used strategy and teamwork, a rare skill among carnivorous dinosaurs. That night, a young Argentinosaurus in the herd began to lag behind, perhaps due to exhaustion or maybe an unseen injury. It did not realize that a pair of red eyes had been watching it since dusk. Suddenly, from behind the bushes, a Mapusaurus sprang out. At 12 meters long, it was not large enough to take down an adult Argentinosaurus. But its target was not the strong. It was the weak. The young Argentinosaurus panicked. It tried to flee, but its massive legs made quick movement difficult. Within seconds, two more Mapusaurus emerged from opposite sides, cutting off its escape. There was nowhere to run. With a powerful bite, the first Mapusaurus clamped onto its hind leg, holding it in place. The young giant struggled, attempting to resist, but another predator lunged at its neck, bringing it crashing to the ground. The earth trembled as its massive body struck the surface. Within minutes, the battle was over. The Mapusaurus pack had won their hunt. But this was not the end for the Argentinosaurus herd. They had to keep moving, keep pushing forward, for it was the only way to survive in this unforgiving world. Migration was life for the Argentinosaurus. They traveled hundreds of kilometers each year, following paths passed down by their ancestors for millions of years. They journeyed through vast plains, dense forests, and winding riverbanks. Sometimes they found green oases, fertile lands rich in food. In places like these, they could rest for a while, allowing their massive bodies to regain energy before continuing their journey. But the climate was unpredictable. Sometimes the rivers they relied on began to dry up. Once abundant vegetation became scarce. They had to walk farther, crossing lands that grew increasingly barren. Some of the older individuals could not endure. Their muscles weakened, their bodies could no longer support their own weight. And in this brutal world, there was no mercy for those who fell behind. Argentinosaurus were not emotional creatures. They did not form bonds like modern mammals. If one fell, the others simply continued their journey without looking back. This was the law of nature, and it was what allowed them to survive for millions of years. Argentinosaurus was one of the largest animals to ever live, but even they could not defy time. With each generation came change. Some of their descendants grew larger, while others failed to withstand the increasingly harsh environment. The world kept evolving, and though Argentinosaurus was a giant, it was not immortal. Yet for millions of years they ruled the land of South America. They thrived, they endured, they conquered their ecosystem through sheer size and strength. Until one day, everything began to change. A difficult era was approaching, a time when the climate began to shift, when predators grew more intelligent, and when food was no longer as abundant as it once was. And so began the beginning of their end. In the vast lands of South America, beneath a sky that was once always bright, something had begun to change. The wind no longer carried the same refreshing breeze. Rain fell less frequently, and when it did, its water was more acidic than before. The Argentinosaurus continued their journey, as they had done for millions of years. But the world they knew was no longer the same. Around them, the towering trees began shedding their leaves earlier than usual. The rivers that once provided life were starting to shrink. Like a distant whisper of impending doom, these changes happened gradually. Not fast enough to be noticed in a single day, but real enough to shape a bleak future. The once fertile lands they roamed were turning into dry plains. Yet, they kept moving forward, for that was all they had ever known. But what they didn't realize was that this was the beginning of their final journey. As the world changed, life had to adapt or disappear. The remaining Argentinosaurs had to search farther for food, struggle harder to survive. Migration, which was once a seasonal journey, became an endless search. But it wasn't just the world that was changing. Predators like Mapusaurus, which once hunted in small packs, had evolved into fiercer killers. In these dire conditions, they could no longer rely on the same strategies. They had to become more aggressive, more relentless. On a dark night, a weary herd of Argentinosaurus rested by a shrinking river. One young individual, its body frail from a lack of food, stood weakly on trembling legs. It had fallen behind, and in the shadows, hungry eyes watched. From the distance, shapes emerged. Mapusaurus no longer hunted in small numbers. They came in large packs, more than 10 at once. The attack happened in an instant. The young Argentinosaurus had no time to escape. Within seconds, razor-sharp teeth sank into its neck. It struggled, but its massive body was no longer as strong as it once was. While its herd continued moving forward, never looking back, the young giant fell, becoming the final prey of the starving Mapusaurus. There was no mercy in this world. The earth continued to change. But the Argentinosaurus endured, yet even they had their limits. The ground beneath them grew hotter. The air they breathed thickened, filled with dust from the ever-erupting volcanoes. The lush, green world they once knew was slowly turning into a graveyard. And then, something happened. Something greater than any challenge they had ever faced before. Far beyond the sky, a mountain-sized rock hurtled toward Earth. A 10-kilometer-wide asteroid that would change everything. When it struck the Yucatan Peninsula, the impact unleashed an explosion more powerful than billions of nuclear bombs. Fires spread in mere seconds, consuming forests, obliterating everything in its path. The shockwave flattened the land for thousands of kilometers. The Argentinosaurus that remained, far to the south, might not have seen the explosion itself, but within days they began to feel its effects. The sky darkened into a thick, impenetrable grey. The sunlight, their eternal source of life, could no longer pierce a dense veil of dust. Temperatures plummeted, plants withered and died, and without food, without warmth, without hope, the last giants of Earth began to fall, one by one. Argentinosaurus did not last long after the disaster. They were creatures too massive to survive in a shattered world, yet though they perished, their legacy remained. Millions of years after they vanished, humans began uncovering their bones from the ground. The first scientists to discover Argentinosaurus fossils could not fathom the sheer size of these creatures when they lived. Even today, we have yet to find a fully intact skeleton. But with each fragment of bone, we piece together their story once more. Their world may have ended, but in Earth's history, they will forever be the unmatched titans. Today, no creatures like Argentinosaurus walk the Earth. Where they once roamed, only small animals remain, struggling to survive. The giants that once ruled the world are gone, leaving only stones and bones as silent witnesses to their glory. Yet, if we look closely, their legacy is still all around us. The birds soaring in the sky are distant descendants of dinosaurs. And in every fossil we uncover, we are reminded that the world was once theirs. And as long as we continue to seek, their story will never truly end. That concludes this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any new and exciting videos. Thank you for watching.